Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome or welcome back to Chef Vic Cuisine. Today we're making baklava, a delicious Turkish dessert that has flaky layers infused with a homemade syrup and a delicious walnut filling. You're sure to enjoy each and every bite. So let's get started. Alright, so to get this recipe started, in a medium-sized pot, we want to add in 1 cup of granulated white sugar, followed by half a cup of honey, 2 tablespoons of sweet and sour juice, as well as 3/4 cup of water. Mix all these ingredients together until they're well combined. And then you want to bring this to a boil at medium-high heat, or 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius, stirring this mix constantly. And once it reaches a rapid boil, it should look something like this. You want to reduce the heat to medium-low, or 249 degrees Fahrenheit or 120 degrees Celsius, and allow this to boil for about 4 minutes undisturbed. And after that 4 minutes, you want to remove it from the heat and set it aside to cool completely. Now, in the bowl of a food processor, we want to add in 4 cups worth of walnuts, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, as well as 1 teaspoon of granulated white sugar. You want to pulse these ingredients together until all the walnuts are finely ground. This creates the walnut filling we're going to use for our baklava. So the final product should look something like this. Now you want to spray the bottom of a 9-inch by 13-inch baking pan with a non-stick spray, or you can use butter if you have it on hand, and fit a piece of parchment paper over it, cutting the parchment paper to lay it flat. Now for this recipe, we're going to need about 16 ounces worth of phyllo dough, and we're going to make sure that that's thawed out of the freezer, so it should be able to roll out very smoothly. So make sure you follow the package instructions on how long you need to keep the dough out in order for it to thaw properly. But always keep in mind that this dough is very fragile, so you want to be gentle when you handle it. But depending on what brand you select, the actual phyllo sheet may be longer than the pan, so you want to cut them to size. And I find using a pastry cutter the best tool to do that. And with one sheet cut to size, I like using that sheet as a template to cut the rest of our phyllo sheets to fit properly in our baking pan. Now that all of our phyllo sheets have been cut to size, any sheets we're not using at the time, we want to gently wrap back in their plastic so that the dough doesn't dry out. Because if the dough dries out, it's going to become very brittle and shatter on us. So you always want to keep it gently wrapped in plastic to maintain what little moisture it has in the dough. So starting with our first sheet, we want to add that into our prepared pan, and then we want to brush a light layer of melted butter onto the sheet. In total, we're probably going to use 1 1/4 cups worth of unsalted butter that's been melted, but you want to make sure that you brush that light layer of melted butter evenly across the entire sheet. It won't take much butter at all to fully coat one sheet. But once it's done, you want to add another phyllo sheet on top of that one. We're going to repeat this process by adding a phyllo sheet and then coating it with a light layer of butter, followed by another phyllo sheet, until we have a total of 10 buttered phyllo sheets. This will create our bottom crust for our baklava. Once that 10th sheet of dough has been added and buttered, we want to add a 1/3 portion of our walnut filling on top of this sheet, spreading the crumbs evenly amongst the top surface. Once that's looking like so, you want to add another sheet of phyllo dough on top of that. And we're going to repeat the same process we started with by adding a sheet of dough and then lightly buttering it, but this time we're only going to use 5 sheets of the phyllo dough. But once all those are added and buttered, we want to add another 1/3 portion of our walnut filling mix, spreading that evenly over this second layer of phyllo. Once that second portion has been evenly added, we want to add another sheet of the phyllo dough on top of that, and repeat the process again, this time also only adding 5 sheets of the phyllo dough. And let me know down in the comments once you try this recipe whether this is true for you or not. But when I butter each layer of the phyllo dough, it reminds me of doing like a watercolor painting. This process for me is really therapeutic, and I often find myself falling into a trance when I make these baklava, so do your best to keep count of each sheet that you're working on. Otherwise, you'll get lost and forget how many sheets you have used already. But now that the next layer of phyllo dough sheets have been laid and buttered, we want to add our final third portion of the walnut filling mix, spread evenly amongst that surface. And now we want to add our top layer, which will be made of 10 buttered phyllo sheets. And don't forget to butter the top layer as well. And now, using a sharp knife, we want to cut through all the layers to create 4 columns along the length of the pan, which should be about 1.5 to 2 inches wide. And then we want to double back with our knife and cut diagonals to form diamonds out of our baklava. And while you're cutting these, you want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit or 163 degrees Celsius. And we're going to place the baklava in the oven and bake these for 1 hour and 10 minutes or until they become golden brown. And once they've finished cooking, we want to remove them from the oven and then immediately ladle on our cooled syrup over the baklava. And you should hear an amazing sizzling sound coming from the baklava. So for all my food ASMR fans out there, listen to this. I love that sound, it's so satisfying. So you want to let your baklava cool completely uncovered for about 4 to 6 hours at room temperature to allow the syrup to infuse into all the layers of the baklava. Each diamond is a serving, and what I like to do to elevate this dish is to garnish the baklava with chocolate syrup as well as some additional finely chopped walnuts. With those final touches, your baklava is ready to be served and enjoyed. And just like that, you've made baklava right at home. An amazing Turkish dessert that makes plenty and it tastes delicious. That walnut filling and syrup combo is definitely top tier. And for a slightly different flavor profile, you can try using pistachios instead of walnuts for this baklava. But when you do try this recipe at home, be sure to tag me at Chef Vic Cuisine or hashtag Chef Vic Cuisine so I can see your great takes on this recipe. As always, this recipe and many more can be found in my cookbook, Chef Vic Cuisine Volume 3, Upgrading Your Inner Chef. And that's available on Amazon, and I'll be sure to leave a link to that in my description box. And feel free to click the pop-up on your screen for more information on that as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this recipe, make sure you smash that like button for me. Seriously, it's the best way to show your support on this channel. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Victor and welcome to Chef Vic Cuisine. I like sharing new recipes each and every week that you can make at home for yourself, your family, or your friends. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you click that subscribe button too. And sharing is caring, so if you enjoyed this recipe and think someone else will too, feel free to share it with all your family and friends. And stay tuned for next week where I show you to make an amazing, intricate dessert that actually comes together pretty easily. It's my own take on a classic baked Alaska, but here we're gonna make mini baked Alaska. Perfect for a small get-together. Well, thank you all again so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Your support means the world to me. Check out my recipes on my page now. YouTube thinks you'll like this video, so let's see if they're right. And I'll catch you next time on another episode of Chef Vic Cuisine. And until then, peace.